Hey guys, it's Charles and Z. We're in the car, but something's different. Actually, two things. Number one, we're parked today, so we're mixing it up for you. And number two, thank you to a subscriber who commented about my headrest being too low, and so I raised it up. And so now if we have an accident in the vehicle, then it's going to hit my head at the right place. So thank you.
Got it. With all of that, thank you so much to our new subscribers. We feel the love. We are appreciative of the comments, all the advice that we're getting down below, especially about my husband's headrest. Very, very important. And we just want to say to anyone else who's watching, remember to like and subscribe down below. So Charles and I we were talking earlier today, and I don't know how we got to this topic, right? And the topic was, are we like our parents? And I was chit-chatting with Charles earlier, and I was thinking back a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago now, we went to the beach. And you know, I'm not one for the big waves. I can swim, but I'm not one for the big waves. And so we went to the beach with all three of our kiddos, our 2-year-old, our 7-year-old at the time, and I think our 8-year-old at the time. And I was telling Charles, don't go too far with our kiddos, right? I'm standing right on the, what do you call it? I'm standing on
the beach?
Well, yeah, on the beach, in the sand area. And Charles is in the ocean. And the waves were a little bit big. It was a little bit of a warning. And it just came to me, I am my mama. And how so, right? So going back to my childhood, I grew up with both parents until around age 16 or so. I think they separated. And my mom, great. My dad, great. But they had different roles, I guess, in my life. My mom was very, house gonna be great. She's gonna keep you in the best fits for clothes, you know, hard worker. My dad was more so free-spirited, you know, thinking about culture, right? He's about the experience. He's a little bit more, I don't want to say daredevil, but he would kind of be like Charles, right? You know, let them come out in the ocean. Let them swim a little bit more. And I realized I'm like my mom. For the longest, and it's not a bad thing, but for the longest, I thought that I was so different from my parents. And I realized I am now that mom, right? I get anxious. I'm a little scared about driving to new locations. I don't want my kids doing anything too risque, putting their lives at risk. But I am her, right? And like I said, it's not a bad trait. It's just, you get this epiphany. I'm in my 30s now, and being a mother and a wife, I'm more like my parents or like my mom than I think. What are your thoughts about that? How do you feel about you being like your parents?
Well, it sounds more like I'm more like your dad.
In our relationship, but
okay.
No, but did you ever have that epiphany, like while raising kiddos, that, hey, I have these traits from my dad or I have these traits from my mom?
Yeah, so my parents got divorced when I was like 8, and I lived with my mom for a bit. I lived with my dad for a bit. I feel like to a certain extent they were both kind of finding themselves during that period. And with my relationship with my dad, he was kind of more of a friend than a parent. So, you know, I didn't have a lot of boundaries, a lot of rules. That kind of caught up with me later in life, as I think we talk about on a different video. But anyway, so how am I like my dad? Like, if I've probably thought in my childhood and up until now, I am nothing like my dad. But we were just talking about it today, and I thought, okay, well, what are some ways in which we're similar? Well, my dad loves to read. I also love to read. He's a very solitary person, more so like up until about 5 years ago. Like he retired in 2007, and for about 15 years. He's not married. After my parents got divorced, he never ever married again. Never really had a serious relationship. And then when he retired, for about 15 years, he literally stayed in his backyard, and he would like go see his friends a little bit during the day, but then he would come home to his backyard and he would read, and he would spend hours every day just kind of like by himself in the backyard. And so I see a little bit of that in me. Now granted, I'm inundated probably morning to night with people. In our house, I work from home. I get up, I help the kids get ready for school or camp. It's summertime now, so it's camp. And then our nanny, takes them there. She comes back, but then it's her and me in the house while I'm working. And then in the afternoon, the kids come back home, and I kind of help with them a little bit. And then Z comes home, and I cook dinner, and it's like people all the time. But I have to go out and do some things to get my solitude, though. Like I do my running, I'll go out and like do some pictures, I'll do something. But it's like if I go too long without having a little bit of solitude, a little bit of alone time, then I start to get really, really crazy. So I kind of crave that alone time, even though I don't get it as much.
I was going to say, that's interesting, because I don't see you as an individual where you need more alone time. Like comparing you to me,
Yeah.
I feel like I think I'm more so of an introvert, and that I really and truly enjoy my solitude, comparing the two of us, right?
Yeah.
And if I had to choose which side that you lean on, I feel like you are a person that gravitates towards people.
Really?
I do, right? Because even in social settings, I feel like Charles, and this is me observing him, I feel like Charles has a way of engaging and interacting with individuals, and it comes off very natural. And you know this is true. For me, in a group setting, I would just sit in the corner and eat my chips and go about. I am not so much of a social butterfly.
But you force yourself to be social when you have to.
I do, but it's still, I think, a lot more difficult compared to you. I think it comes easier for you. I'm not saying that you don't require some solitude, but I think it's a lot easier. So it's just interesting to me is what I'm saying, that you think that you lean more on the side of solitude, from what I understand. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. So anyway, so that's one way that I'm kind of like my dad, is I feel that we both need solitude a little bit. He gets it a lot more than I do. Okay, so now tell me how else you would say you're like your mom.
Well, I want to draw on a little bit of both, because I think that there's a mix of both, right? So that was like my mom, but I think there's features of my dad also.
Okay.
I think my dad is, like I said, more free-spirited about the culture. He's a speaker. He's an author. While I am an introvert, there is a certain part of me I like to speak. I'm shocker. Right? I enjoy... I get nervous about it, but it's also very exhilarating for me to do like presentations and things like that. So I really do think I got that little bug from my dad. In addition, growing up, and I think this was a great part of my childhood, I interacted with individuals from all walks of life, right? From all socioeconomic classes, all ethnicities, all races. And I really think it allowed me to grow as an individual. So when I walk into any space, I don't feel intimidated, right? I'm more so inquisitive to learn more about the people around me. And my dad is definitely that person. Let me learn about your food. Let me learn, why you pray the way that you pray. Let me learn about why you wear these certain clothes. And so I think there is an aspect of me that continues with that. And I try to also pour that into our children also. So I think it's a good mix, right? I think for my mom, though, I think I want to learn. I'm working on my mom. I think she has this resilience, right? there was a point, when she and my father separated, and it is hard out here, right? Working, having kiddos, having a household. And there's certain times where, I'm confident, but I'm like, I need that resilience, that strength, that, pull them up by the bootstraps, so to speak. I want to work on that. Sometimes I feel like I can be a little too sensitive. And don't get me wrong, I'm allowed to feel my emotions, right? But I feel like life is going to give you blows and hits, and you got to stay focused on it. So I think that part of my mom is something that is a work in progress for me, right? But I will also say too, as I've gotten older, and I know everyone's like, well, duh, how much my parents were figuring it out, right? Because when you're younger, even in your 20s, you think, okay, they knew how to do this, or they had it together. Now that I'm in my late 30s, it truly, and I say truly, I've really absorbed that I don't know a lot. Right? With our kiddos and things like that. It's on a whim, right? Good thing for ChatGPT of, figuring out a few things of what to do, how to put your baby to sleep, all of this. There's still a lot that I'm learning on the day-to-day. And so one thing, going back to my dad, that I'm also working on is just being open to change, right? And yes, we all know life is going to change a lot, but even with this move that we've been keeping you guys updated about, with the second move into our rental, it kind of hit me this, a little bit of a low mood. I wouldn't say depression, but a low mood. And I want to learn as far as the flexibility, right? Being adaptive in any situation. And I think my dad is really, really good at that. Now, is there something else that you think, for example, from your mom? You talked a lot about your dad. Any traits or features of your mom's personality that you see in yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one that I just thought of actually since we started making the video. So my mom is a big people pleaser. She always kind of wraps herself around the interests of her other person, and she's always like trying to do things for them and wants to do the things that they want to do, and I actually have some of that in my personality. I really like helping people, sometimes to my own detriment. So I don't think it's necessarily a positive quality. It's just a quality. I love doing things for people. I love promising things for people, which sometimes I can't follow through on, like at the time that I'd like to follow through on them, and that gets me in trouble sometimes. So again, something that I could probably work on with myself a little better.
You know what's funny? When I met Charles, this comes into play what you were talking about, and I remember Charles had a Yukon. And there was
That's a GMC truck for people in other countries.
Yes. And so Charles had a family friend who had some story, a loved one.
She was a friend of our nanny at the time.
Yes, right. So kind of like an associate to you.
Yeah.
And just randomly wanted to grab and this was a nice Yukon, a nice SUV, and hop down, driving over 6-7 hours.
She would have gone to Miami to party.
Pretty much. And I'm like, we were just dating at this time, right? I'm like, why are you, this is not even a close friend. This is a friend of a friend. Why are you doing that? Do you know?
She's a licensed driver. You got insurance.
It just didn't resonate as why that would be appropriate. You know what I mean?
Probably not.
To borrow, maybe to go somewhere locally, you don't have a car and you need to, you have an appointment or a job interview, and, but it just struck me at that time how much of a people pleaser. Even another scenario, the scenario very well because it still kind of makes me bitter. right? It was I think it was our oldest son's birthday. He was turning 3 or 4. Do you know
no, he was turning 4.
4.
Yeah.
4, that's right. Do you know the story, what I'm going to say?
Is this about the photographer
Oh,
charging
yes.
money?
So
Yes. Okay.
I'll let you tell the story.
Oh, okay. So, and again, this was like the same group of people, like friends of the nanny that we used to have, and they had a friend who was a photographer, and the photographer friend came and took pictures of our son's birthday party, and then he turned around and charged us. Well, he needed like $400 in cash or something like that.
Did you know? We'll go back a little
Okay.
bit. So as far as before the party, they talked to you about having this individual come out.
Yeah.
Did you know the price of what this person? They
No.
didn't communicate the price
No.
to you, but they came to the party.
They came to the party.
Right, without you confirming as far as price or things like that.
Yep.
They showed up late,
Yep.
snapped some little janky photos, and then you said charge what?
They wanted like $400.
And how long did it take to get the photos?
Oh, like a month or something.
It took more than a month. It was
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 months for a little bit of janky photos at our oldest son's birthday party. Never communicated pricing. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to pay that. And I'm like, pay who? Pay, why? Why are we paying? There was never confirmation of price, what time they were going to come. They just showed up. And it's like, yeah, they just showed up. We never got when they wanted the payment, we never even got the photos at that time. It took months and months of reaching out, hey, and then when we got the photos weren't even quality. And so that just shows you, right? And it's a trait about Charles that I love, but at the same time, I think he has to, what's the word? Direct, right? That trait a little bit better as far as being a people pleaser. And I can't speak to it. You speak to it about in relation to, your parents, but I can agree he is definitely a people pleaser. I'm more of a no. A very quick no. So we try to balance each other out.
We do.
To some degree.
I've got a quick story though, as long as we're talking about parents. You know what's an interesting realization that always gets me is you were talking about like when you're a kid, you think your parents know everything.
Yeah.
And then you grow up and you have kids and you realize that like you don't know everything. You know what's an interesting realization? Like when you remember back to when you were a kid and you think about a scene with your parent. Like think about a memory with your parent and think about like how you felt about them, like that they had all the answers and that that they were the one, they could solve all the problems and all that. And then remember like how old were you in that scene in your head, and then figure out how old was your parent in that scene. And then the realization, like when you attain the age that your parent was in that memory that you have of them, and then you can like think about it from your own perspective. Like, do I know everything? Like, how do I feel at that age?
Yeah, you know what? Just thinking about it, I think it is important for your children to believe or trust that you know what you're doing.
They have a natural need to seek out leadership.
Yeah, so I think it's important. I think it would be problematic if when we were younger that we didn't fully believe that our parents just knew what to do.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think then we would have self-doubt, anxiety, all of these things. So I want my kids, thinking about it now, I want them to think that I got it figured out. I know what I'm doing, right? And am I going to lie to them? Like if I don't know something or if I need to look up an answer, am I going to lie to them? No, but I want them to have a certain trust in my leadership, in my guidance, and how I parent them. I think that's important. And I'm glad that I felt that way about my parents when I was young. I needed that. I needed to feel protected. I think a part of it is to feel protected, right? Especially in this world where there's so much going on, so much stimulation. Thinking about it now, I want my kids to feel that level of protection, right? So trust me. I don't know.
And I think I told you earlier that when I was a kid, there were a couple times I remember, especially with my dad, where something went wrong and I kind of watched him lose control. You know, like one time he lost his wallet. We realized he lost his wallet. He was like beating on the steering wheel, and it was back when I was like 10, and I remember that left an impression to me. And so with our kids, even when things are totally out of control, I don't react to it. I make our kids feel like everything is under control, because I don't want them to have that feeling.
Yeah, they should know that you can have emotions. I think that's a part of it, but in my opinion, you shouldn't try to make it where you're, what's the word? You're completely, I guess, kind of what you're saying, you're completely out of control. Let me ask you something. Around what age did you realize that your parents didn't really know, like they were just figuring it out? Around what age or part of your life was that?
Probably like 17, 18, about the time when everybody thinks their parents are stupid.
But that's not you.
You mean that's not like an actual realization? That's like a chemical reaction to them?
Yeah, because there's around a particular age where you have some empathy towards your parents, because you're like, oh, I see maybe why they made these mistakes or why they did this. I get it now. So not that, oh, they're just, my parents don't get it and they're just, but there's a period or there's a point in your life where you start being empathetic to their stumbles and fumbles, so to speak.
I think it was age 30. I think when I hit age 30, I forgave my parents for not being perfect.
I would agree. I don't know if I thought about it so deeply in my 20s, but I think in my 30s is when I'm like, oh, okay, they don't have it all figured out. And it was when I became a parent when I realized I am more, I mean, of course my personality has differences, but I realized I carry some of the traits, from my parents, right? And so it just always is crazy to me how we grow so much at this point in our lives. And then my last question to you is there, my parents, do you see any traits from them that I have?
Y'all are both amazing with interior decorating.
We do love. Yeah. My mother, she lives a couple of hours away from us, but that I do miss. She would love to come and help us as far as choosing what she likes, what she doesn't like for the new build. Well, hopefully I could get her up here in the next few months. But anyway, on that note, give us some comments below about what age or at what point in your life did you realize maybe I am more like my mom or I'm more like my dad than I realized, or a good mix, right? And it could be the good, the bad, the ugly, either way. And let us know as far as how that has affected you being a parent, a friend, a partner to others. And then, as always, remember to like and subscribe down below. We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye, guys.